Hello students, I welcome you to the program Psychology of Individual Differences, and our today's lecture is Psychodynamic Approach to Personality. The objectives of the lecture include to know about the nature of psychodynamic approach as given by Sigmund Freud, to know about the topographic and structural model, to be familiar with psychic determinism, to understand instincts as the determinants of behavior, and to know the educational implications of psychodynamic approach. Dear students, personality refers to an individual's characteristic pattern of thinking, feeling and behaving. Various theorists view personality from diverse perspectives. The psychodynamic approach sees human functioning based upon the interaction of drivers and forces within the person like unconscious. The psychodynamic approach included the original psychodynamic theory propounded by Sigmund Freud, followed by the theorists like Carl Jung, Alfred Adler, Anna Freud, and Erik Erikson. Now, Sigmund Freud's approach. Sigmund Freud developed a technique he would call as psychoanalysis in 1900 and used it to treat mental disorders. Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic approach was based on his experiences in his psychiatric practice, where he would observe and treat his patients. According to Sigmund Freud, conflicts arise between unconscious, sexual and aggressive impulses of people and societal demands to check and abandon these impulses. Different personalities are formed because of the attempts to resolve such conflicts. The basic premise behind psychodynamic approach is that much of what we think and do is driven and dictated by unconscious processes. For Sigmund Freud, most of the psychological events are caused by an individual's unsatisfying drives and unconscious motives. Now, basic assumptions of the psychodynamic perspective. The topographic model. Sigmund Freud described his ideas about personality in his famous 1900 book, The Interpretation of Dreams, where he introduced his topographic model of the mind. He assumed that the mind could be divided into three territorial regions, namely conscious, preconscious and unconscious. For Sigmund Freud, these segments of the psyche, considered as major concepts of personality dynamics, are primarily responsible for originating and determining all our actions and reactions. The conscious. The conscious part of the mind refers to our current awareness and contains all the information that a person is paying attention to at any given time. In other words, it consists of everything we are aware of at the present moment. It includes the thoughts, ideas and images that we are aware of at any moment of our mental life. The conscious part of the mind is compared to the tip of an iceberg, which occupies only 1/10 of our total mental life. Since the mind follows the social code of morality in conscious life, It represses the natural desires which come into conflict with it. The repressed desires become unconscious wishes or motives. Now, the preconscious. The preconscious contains all experiences of which we are not conscious at the moment but can readily be brought into awareness or attention either spontaneously or with a little effort. It is the middle portion of our mind that stores the preconscious information. One can move material from the preconscious into consciousness simply by the means of focusing his or her attention on it. We can call it as an immediately accessible part of our mind where we can trace our memory. For example, the preconscious information what somebody had for dinner last night can be brought to consciousness by focusing on it. The unconscious. The unconscious, which is the deepest structure of our psyche, contains all the repressed wishes, drivers and motives. According to Sigmund Freud, many of them are related to anxiety producing materials like sexual impulses and aggressive urges. For Sigmund Freud, the unconscious part of mind is more important than our conscious mind because it is responsible for most of our behavior. Sigmund Freud's assumption is that our conscious behavior is always originated by the forces residing in our unconscious. People have no awareness of these repressed thoughts, feelings, desires, and memories, but these influence every aspect of their lives. These unconscious motives influence an individual's judgments, feelings, or behavior. For Sigmund Freud, the unconscious mind is the main source of human behavior and the foundation over which the whole structure of personality is built. Sigmund Freud asserts that the hidden treasure of mental life, which belongs to the unconscious, is very much responsible for most of our behavior patterns. The style of our doing and behaving is always determined by the forces residing in our unconscious and not by the choice of our conscious. It is not only the normal behavior but the causes responsible for abnormal behavior are also decided by what is hidden in the unconscious. Now, the structural model. In order to extend his theory, Sigmund Freud also developed the structural model which refers to the existence of three interacting mental structures called the id, ego and superego. For him, the id refers to the primitive and instinctive component of personality. Id consists of all the inherited, that is, biological components of personality, which include the sex, life instinct, eros, the libido, and the aggressive, that is, death instinct, or we may call it as thanatos. Hence, id is the basic source of all psychobiological energy. It is the center of both life and death. It contains innate urges, instincts, desires, and wishes. It is guided by the pleasure-seeking principle and is unrestrained by civilized demands and controls. Terming it differently, we can say that id, a reservoir of unconscious psychic energy, is governed by the principle of hedonism, operates on the pleasure principle or on animal level, seeks immediate gratification and is not restrained by reality. It does operate completely at the unconscious level. the ego. The ego is regarded as the decision-making component of personality which mediates between the unrealistic id and the external real world. The ego operates through the reality principle and represents the logical, reality-oriented part of the mind. Ego refers to that part of the psyche or mind which remains in contact with the outside world. Ego acts with intelligence in selecting or deciding which of the appetites need to be satisfied and in what manner. It makes an adjustment between the wishes of the id on one side and the demands of reality on the other. It distinguishes subjective experiences from the nature of things in the external environment. It thus follows the reality principle. It acts as a mediator trying to resolve the conflict between id desires on one side and the moral principles on the other. Id operates completely at the unconscious level, but the ego operates at both the conscious and preconscious levels. In addition to being the logical, rational, reality-oriented part of the psyche, the ego serves another crucial function of managing anxiety through the use of ego defenses. Ego defenses refer to mental strategies that people use automatically and unconsciously when they feel threatened. Take, for instance, the ego defense repression. It involves removing the upsetting thoughts and feelings from consciousness and moving them to unconscious. Now, the superego. This superego, a third structure, is that part of the psyche which has been rightly termed as the conscience. It is considered as the representative of sociability and morality. The primary function of superego is to make people behave like civilized human beings. It is truly regarded as the moral arm of the personality. In comparison to id, which is regarded as the biological component, and ego as the psychological component of the personality, superego is thought to be the social development of the personality. In comparison to the real of ego, it represents the ideal. Superego, which operates mostly at the preconscious level of awareness, internalizes the morals of parents and society and acts as a voice of conscience. Id refers to the seat of drives and instincts, and the superego to our conscience, that is the moral guidelines, rules and prohibitions. The id and superego are in constant conflict, which creates anxiety, and it is the ego trying to resolve such conflicts while making use of defense mechanisms. According to Sigmund Freud, our personality reflects the interplay of these three psychic structures, that is the id, ego and superego. It is on the basis of this interaction between these factors that different personalities are formed. On the one side, the id operates on the pleasure principle and presses for the immediate discharge of bodily tension. The superego, on the other hand, is concerned, attempts to prohibit such gratification. The ego attempts to mediate in this situation of conflict. The personality makeup of the individual is decided on how much the ego is able to discharge its responsibilities. Those individuals who possess a strong ego do maintain a balance between the superego and the id, and hence have a balanced personality. In case id predominates and instincts rule, the individual possesses a weak ego. He or she is bound to have an impulsive, maladjusted personality type. Such an individual may indulge in unlawful or immoral activities leading to the formation of a delinquent personality. In case the superego is strongest and it does not permit desirable fulfillment of the repressed wishes and impulses, a restrained, over-controlled neurotic personality is formed. Now, psychic determinism. The third core assumption of psychodynamic theory is that thoughts, motives, emotional responses, and expressed behaviors do not arise randomly but on the basis of some cause. According to psychoanalytic approach, all behavior is determined and this behavior is caused entirely by unconscious factors over which people have no control. Sigmund Freud believed that every behavior is determinate. For him, the slips of the tongue provided an insight into the unconscious mind, and hence this behavior is having its own significance. So, there is nothing like a random thought, feeling, motive, or behavior. Most theorists and researchers now generally agree that thoughts, motives, emotional responses, and expressed behaviors do not arise randomly but always stem from some definite cause. Instincts as the determinants of behavior. In the opinion of Sigmund Freud, instincts are the determinants of human behavior. For him, there are two main instincts, namely the life instinct, or we may call it as eros, and the death instinct or thanatos, which are the real source of all the psychic energy available in man. Man aims associated with life instinct are survival and race propagation. All the instincts associated with the preservation of life instinct were called as libido by Sigmund Freud. Libido includes the energy associated with all the life instincts, which may include sex, hunger, and thirst. For Sigmund Freud, libido refers to that life maintaining energy which aims to seek pleasure through sexual gratification. Personality is therefore governed by the need to gratify the libido. The other instinct, called the death instinct, is related to the impulse for destruction. According to Sigmund Freud, this instinct is manifested through acts of aggression, cruelty, and even of suicide. When an individual's life instinct is not allowed to function or dictate behavior, the death instinct comes forward to operate the behavior. For example, if one is not stopped from seeking gratification or drive pleasure, he or she is bound to lose balance and suffer. Dear students, now let us know the educational implications of psychodynamic theory. Sigmund Freud's psychodynamic approach to personality contributes much towards the understanding the theory and practice of education. Its influence to educational thought and practice can be highlighted as: first, importance of childhood experience. According to psychodynamic approach, childhood stage occupies an important place in the life of an individual because this period lays the foundation of one's personality. It is important because during this period, the maximum physical, intellectual, emotional, and social development takes place. Hence, this approach stresses the significance of providing rich learning experiences in this stage so that a sound foundation of integrated personality development is possible. Hence, the teachers need to provide maximum opportunities to the learners for their healthy physical, intellectual, emotional, and social development. It has laid emphasis on giving maximum freedom to children and minimum interference in the course of their natural growth and development. Then, importance of unconscious motivation. Sigmund Freud has stressed on the significance of the unconscious element in mental development. His approach recognized the importance of unconscious motivation in the development of behavior patterns of children. The importance of unconscious experiences in determining behavior has helped a lot in determining the causes of behavioral deviations. It has assisted us a lot in understanding the exceptional children and planning for their education so that they may be prevented from becoming maladjusted or problem children. Then, widening the aim of education and providing broad-based curriculum. Sigmund Freud's approach is a holistic approach to understand human personality. Sigmund Freud's theory has widened the aims of education by laying emphasis on the development of wholesome personality of children. Taking into consideration the whole personality in view, this approach recommends for broad-based curriculum so that whole personality of the child may be developed. It becomes necessary that the courses of study, methods of teaching, evaluation should be enriched enough to suit the personality patterns and needs of the pupils. Curriculum should meet the needs of the children and include a large number of co-curricular activities so that all aspects of personality, physical, intellectual, emotional, aesthetic, social and moral may be developed in a holistic manner. Then, education for mental health. Psychodynamic approach has significantly recommended for imparting education for mental health. The teachers need to remain very much vigilant for the preservation of mental health of children. This approach advocated that the children should be given ample opportunities to express their emotions freely in and outside the class. This freedom to express emotions has been considered very conducive to the healthy development of the personality of the children. The provision for co-curricular activities in terms of games, supports and cultural activities may prove a lot in this regard. Then there is importance of guidance services. Dear students, psychodynamic approach has advocated for the provision of providing guidance services to children at school. Sigmund Freud's approach to personality has given a new direction to the process of educational and vocational guidance. Children need to be assisted in taking wise decisions with regard to their academic endeavors and vocational pursuits, taking into consideration their varying interests and aptitudes. Dear students, it was all for this lecture. I hope you might have enjoyed the session. Thanks.